Hi, I'm Dr. T and welcome to my office. So today I would like to take a little bit of a step back from universal design and talk about accommodations. So in this context, we are talking about changing something for an individual student. Now, this is going to be a topic where there are laws involved, and so a couple disclaimers. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer, and this is not legal advice. Second, this is going to be very US-centric. I assume things are very similar to where you're at, but you check wherever you're at. In fact, this could vary from state to state and school to school, but I'm going to be kind of covering the general laws for the United States very briefly. Okay, so you're going to be required to provide reasonable accommodation for students with disabilities. Now, you're not required to assess those students and figure out if they really do have a disability or not. Your Disability Student Services is going to deal with that entirely. They'll send you a letter saying, hey, these are what we believe to be reasonable accommodations for this student. If you got a problem with one of those accommodations because it clashes with one of your learning objectives for the course, call up Disability Student Services, meet with the student, Disability Student Services, and sort something out. I remember there was a Reddit thread of a faculty member posting that they were teaching an education course that was, the learning objective was to learn how to present material to students. And the student who was taking this had an accommodation that they didn't need to present in front of other people. And so this was one of those like, okay, this is a major, this is the learning objective for the course. This isn't going to work out. And so they talked with Disability Student Services and they're like, yeah, no, that's not a reasonable accommodation because you're required to do a reasonable accommodation, not any old accommodation. Disability Student Services, which will be a department at your school, if your school doesn't have it, it's a really sketchy school, they're going to handle all the paperwork for this. You don't handle any of it. In fact, if a student comes up to you and says, hey, I have a disability, I need an accommodation, you have to treat them like every other student. You have to remain equal, good old equality, until you get that letter from Disability Student Services. And that is almost always going to be forward acting, not retroactive. So if the student's like, hey, I need accommodation on this test, and it's like the day of the test, it's like, I haven't got a letter yet. Go talk to Disability Student Services, but you still have to do this test the normal way. Once I get the letter, then we'll deal with it. Also, if they come to you like, hey, I have an IEP from K-12, that's not our school's Disability Student Services. If it's not your school, it's not the school they're going to, it doesn't count. This becomes really important with dual enrollment students who may not realize that while they're in high school, they're also taking college classes. They're in college, they have to go through the college side because it's a college course. Their IEP does not apply. They have to go through Disability Student Services and get those accommodations that way. They'll probably still get most of the same accommodations, but they got to do the paperwork and they got to handle all of this. Okay, so take home, basically if your school is not dreadful, most schools that are of any decency, Disability Student Services is going to handle all of this for you. You're going to get a letter or an email or some kind of official something or other. We have like a website that we can like scroll through our student rosters. And it's basically going to say, these students get these accommodations. If these are relatively reasonable for your class, there's no problem. Almost always, they're more than reasonable. They're, to be honest, kind of light in the terms of accommodations wise. If it's not on the list, and my lights are going out, so I need to talk faster. If it's not on the list, you don't do it. Yeah. So with that light going out, I know to end this video. Have a wonderful day. Okay, put in a fresh battery in the light, and when it went out, I realized I forgot to cover something. Quite often, most of the accommodations, your school is just going to deal with themselves. So you will almost certainly, the most common accommodation is extended time on tests. I got that in college. I used it like once. It's nearly useless. At least if you're doing anything remotely resembling universal design. Anyways, obviously double time on a test would be a great burden for you. Your school will almost certainly have some form of testing center, maybe hooked onto Disability Student Services, maybe a separate entity. They will handle the students taking the test there. That allows them to do however long they need to take, a reduced distraction environment, if they get to use a computer, to type out responses. Basically allows them to do most of the accommodations. Most of those accommodations are going to basically be very test-centric, and well, that allows them to just kind of do the accommodations for you. Odds are most accommodations you're not going to have to worry about too awful much. Student gets a note taker, they hire the note taker for the student. So yeah, most everything in that accommodation thing, they're just going to do for you. And it's really a minor feature. You just have to know to email the testing center your test whenever you have a test, etc. And scheduling, that kind of stuff, etc. is all either on the student quite often or Disability Student Services. So this is usually not a major thing for you. Okay, with that said, have a wonderful day and hope everything else works well for you.